people always text me and whatever else talking about the SAnitY character that Nikki was doing. And what a lot of people don't understand is it was very, very one-dimensional. Like, it couldn't go any further. Like, you can only be crazy and have no direction for so long.
We just got done watching Raw. The way they're pushing Nikki is quite brilliant. I mean, what do you think of Nikki ASH?
I love it. Like, so I know, I think like people always text me and whatever else talking about the SAnitY character that Nikki was doing. And what a lot of people don't understand is it was very, very one-dimensional. Like, it couldn't go any further. Like, you can only be crazy and have no direction for so long. So I think like this is a lot closer to what, like what a lot of people don't remember is before WWE, Nikki was a villain. She was like a always on the microphone, larger than life character. So her getting this opportunity with the superhero, with a chance to always be talking on the microphone and always getting a chance to actually be there for young girls and young boys to as a potential role model and as an idol to look up to, is awesome, because Nikki's so charismatic and she loves this so much. So I'm personally very excited for this character because, listen, like, I think a lot of people think remember things differently, I think, is the best way to look at it when it comes to nostalgia and all these kind of things. But what she's doing right now could potentially be the best thing that ever happens to her, and I'm so excited to see what happens next.
So this is something I've always wanted to ask you or ask her or something. But why were you guys separated when you came to SmackDown?
Um, we didn't cause a fuss. So it's like when when SAnitY were promoted, like, I mean, I guess we could have, bitched and moaned and whatever else, but that's not who we are as people. Our careers weren't tied to each other when we started wrestling. We both loved wrestling. We got into it separately for our own reasons. So we're not going to like cry and whatever else about being put together. I mean, would it have been nice? Yeah, absolutely. It would have been awesome. Could have traveled with each other and whatever else. But we both have goals. We're both determined. We both wanted to succeed. So you want to succeed in your own path, not because your partner is the one who's bitched and moaned and got you doing something. You know what I mean? You want to succeed because you're the talent. You want to succeed because you're good enough. And that's how we both looked at it. Because listen, there's going to be a day when wrestling's done, and we'll be sick looking at each other. So and so we're not that bothered about being separated. Like, listen, it's different for people who have kids and all this, whatever. They do need to travel together and all that kind of stuff. But we weren't in that situation.
Something else. Why do you think SAnitY did not translate onto SmackDown in the same way that it did on NXT? I mean, I loved a lot of stuff you guys did on NXT. What happened?
It's time. So really, like, when we were recording NXT and whatever else, you had all that time to do the full entrance and everything else. Whereas on SmackDown Raw, like, it's very dictated by how much time you can do before commercials and everything like that. Because it was live TV, NXT was recorded, so it was a different. They could change it around, move the commercials that suited them. Um, so that's one factor when it comes to the entrance and the presentation. Also, we went up without Nikki, so we're immediately a different group without her. So, and we went from being faces towards the end of our NXT run. We go into SmackDown completely brand new as villains, and the top villains at the time were the Bludgeon Brothers. So and they were champs for a long time. So, and then I think it was Sheamus and Cesaro. So there just wasn't a great amount of room for us. So a lot of it comes down to time and a lot of it's luck. And it just maybe wasn't on our side. Maybe we didn't impress the bosses when we had our chances. I don't know. Like, those are questions that are better asked to somebody else. But what I can tell you is one writer told me they saw a promo of ours. They loved it. They adored it. They loved what it represented. They watched the exact same promo 2 weeks later and they didn't like it. So that's literally what was told to me when I came back after the SmackDown run. And that's all I can tell you, because as I said before, wrestling is a very fickle industry, and and you just have to roll with the punches where you can.
And you must have heard those similarities between SAnitY and the Wyatt family. One of them
Sure.
took off in such a big manner. It's very surprising that SAnitY did not. But like you said, I mean, people probably Do you think it was one of the biggest missed opportunities in the SmackDown roster?
I mean, it would have been really cool. Like, I know that there was definitely pitches for us to do something with the Wyatt family, and I don't know how close those ever came to fruition. It would have been very cool. Like, I had a very similar body shape at that time to Bray Wyatt as well, so it could have been very interesting. If we'd have done something at that point. But listen, that's Bray ended up creating that new character and just took off like a few months later, and the Bludgeon Brothers were split away from Bray at that point. So, a lot of it was just circumstance. Us personally, we'd have loved it if we'd have done 6 months against the Wyatts or against the Shield or whatever else, because that would have been, and especially if we'd have done more with the New Day on TV. Because there are all these great 3-man groups who'd been over the last decade that we were on there. What made us slightly unique was we had Nikki as part of the group, and sadly we weren't able to take that with us onto the main. That would have been very interesting had we have done that. But at the same time, I understood why. One of the reasons would have been it's very hard for us to have taken an ass kicking and then Nikki's standing there, doing nothing. So, I understand some of the reasons why it didn't happen. So, but out of all seriousness, like, I would have loved it if we'd have done something with the Wyatts or the Shield or anything like that, because, I was watching these guys from afar before I joined the WWE thinking this is the coolest. I remember the 6 of them squaring off once. None of them are wearing traditional wrestling gear. And it just really like sparked something in me, because we'd went through this period where everybody's wearing like maybe mid 2000s to maybe 2011 or whatever. Everybody's wearing the trunks and the boots. Nobody's really twisting anything. Whereas the years before the Attitude Era and then all the way before that, there was a lot more unique looking people. So when I saw the Shield against the Wyatt family, this 6-man standoff, and it's just this mind blowing like realization that you don't have to look like everybody else. And I think it was very important at the time.
But you mentioned the limitations with Nikki, but at the same time, I mean, they are doing Bray and Alexa. I mean, they did Bray and Alexa for such a long time. I mean, that wasn't a hindrance there. Couldn't Nikki have worked in a similar kind of role?
Maybe, like that, like, I don't know, but I think the most important part is as we were going up to the main roster, you're starting from scratch almost. And generally, villains would go up and they would get their ass beat by the baby faces. So the problem is, like, what does Nikki do when that happens? Because you can't really have man on women violence, and that for me is completely understandable. I think that was one of the takeaways she had herself, like on NXT. Yes, she could attack Adam Cole and then she can kind of disappear off screen because we can make that work, but it's very difficult to make that happen on a live show, a live television show, especially in those big arenas that we were doing for SmackDown and stuff like that. So yeah, like, I'm sure there would have been a thousand ways around it. There always is. But like, we maybe just weren't we weren't maybe seen that way at the time. Maybe they didn't think it was important. Maybe they thought it was more important to have Nikki in the women's division at NXT because they didn't have many experienced girls who were ready to carry the load, and they'd done a lot of promotions over the couple of years before that. So Nikki went right back into the women's division and was involved in a lot of big storylines. So especially with Shayna, I remember, like, so there was like, yeah, probably a lot of ifs and buts as to why these things happened, and I'm only really speculating because it's never really been answered to me. So
Yeah, fantastic, man. So how does one go from SmackDown to back to NXT? I mean, how did that whole thing happen?
I literally I had a conversation with Triple H, and I just said honestly, if there's anything NXT or NXT UK, I'd love to do that as part of even if I'm still on SmackDown, whatever, and I can go back there and do anything. And he said, listen, I know you're not somebody who wants to just be sitting in catering, waiting for a paycheck, because at that point I was 33 or something like that, and like I was in great shape. I was feeling ready, raring to go, wanting to wrestle. I mean, should I have stayed and probably like waited for another opportunity? Sure, you never know what could have happened. But I'm really glad with the decision that I made. Like, a lot of the guys on the NXT roster I got to mix up with had some really fun matches. I loved all the tours. I loved, I loved working with the younger talent as well, on the house shows and everything else, and in training. So me personally, like the first thing I did, I went on, I think it was the Sunday or maybe whatever it is, I was told you're going back to NXT. The next day I was at the building and I was in class with Shawn Michaels. So I mean, I had that choice, and I was very glad I made that choice, to be honest.